What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Unconventional Money Moves podcast. I got Brandon Cole with us here today from the Bay Area, which is funny. I was talking to him yesterday before the show, and he said it's colder there than it is up here in Maryland. So found that
Yeah.
interesting. And Brandon founded Prolific Leadership Development. They are an insurance company that helps protect families and individuals through insurance. And I found it interesting, Brandon. You originally were doing what, graphic design? That's what you went to school for? And how do you transition from graphic design to insurance? I was curious to know that.
Yeah, man. So long story short, I was an athlete, and I was an athlete coming up through school. So I ended up getting a full ride scholarship to play basketball at Cal State Monterey Bay. I actually started off in computer engineering, and with the traveling, the classes, the labs, they did not work well together. And I ended up having to figure out a way to make sure that I could stay eligible, but stay in the same framework of technology, I guess you could say. And graphic design, graphic engineering is essentially the route that I ended up choosing, the degree I ended up grabbing. Used it to some degree, but played overseas for a little bit. Played overseas basketball professionally for a little bit. And when I came back to the working class world, I guess you can call it, after my father passed away, that's when I transitioned into my degree field. And very shortly after that, I realized that it was not going to be enough, at least not at that time. And I'm kind of glad I didn't stay there, because with all the technology, AI, the new systems, I would have been out of a job very quickly. And
Yeah,
I honestly fell in love with the idea of, the financial services industry. My family, after my father passed away, was kind of in a little bit of a tight spot, because I wouldn't say that he did anything necessarily wrong. He did all the things that you're told to do. He invested in his company's 401k. He had a little bit of life insurance. He actually got rid of the $1 million policy that he had, because he was trying to cut down on costs. And supposedly his portfolio should have performed well enough for him to, to not need it. And it just didn't happen to be the case. And
Mhm.
he's not the only one that's happened to in the United States. There's a ton of Americans that ends up being the case with. But once he passed away, we had to figure out what we were going to do with our financial resources at that point, and we were serviced by a gentleman that was able to kind of break some basic things down for us. And I really just fell in love with that process of getting ourselves back to where we were supposed to be. And after that, it was one of those scenarios where I said, man, this, not only do I like this, like this would be amazing. Like if I feel like this, it'd feel amazing to be able to teach others how to do things like that as well. And that was kind of my introduction into the financial services industry, and starting off with the insurance space, and then creating relationships with financial advisors, estate planning, et cetera.
Totally. So did the name Prolific come from being a prolific scorer in basketball?
So I don't want to say that, because I was a hell of a scorer at one point in my career, especially when I ended up getting overseas and everything else. But prolific actually comes from there's a there's a rapper by the name of Nipsey Hussle. I truly have always loved his music. And if you listen to his music at all, he uses the word prolific quite often. And that's where the inspiration from that came from. So, but yes, yeah, I'll take the first one though. I was a pretty decent scorer, so we can go with that too.
Cool. Who is the most notable player you went up against overseas that you can remember?
Um, no one that at this time is currently playing. The majority of the guys that I played against are actually guys I played against in college, and they're the stars of all these different teams now. So all of them have uh, Filipino citizenship. So Robbie Herning, he's out there. Another guy, Simon Anisu, he's a star that just won the championship again. Uh, another good friend of mine, Frankie Jackson, he's actually from the Bay, or all these guys are from the Bay Area, but we all went to different high schools, different colleges, played against each other in college, and they're all killing it out there right now. Super, super excited for them, super proud of them as well.
Yeah, we had one guest that played overseas. He lives in Dubai now, and he told me the best person he went up against was Andre Kirilenko.
Oh, oh. Cow.
Yeah,
Well, that's
he
somebody.
was like, yeah, he's like when I went up against him, I was like, he's like I knew where I he's like I knew where I stood in terms of
Yeah,
my basketball skills.
right, right. I actually
And it's
saw.
crazy how like it's yeah, I hate when that happens. You start talking at the same time.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I met another guy who was like Mr. Nevada for basketball in high school, and he was like, yeah, I went and played this tournament in New York, and I saw this like guy. I don't know who he was. He was like 7 feet tall, and he was like dribbling and shooting. He took the tip. He was doing all these moves, and then he's like, I came down and dude, I gave him the best move ever. I did my like pattern like off to the left, cross to the right, and he looked at me like he just invented the move, stole it, dribbled down and dunked on me. And he's like, I later figured out that person was Lamar Odom.
Right. Yeah, it'll go like that. It'll definitely go like that. I want to say when I was out there, Orlando Johnson was playing. Um, and I think he had like 70 and 30. And I'm not kidding. Like 70 and 30. Just was an absolute scoring machine. The 30 rebounds just came effortlessly. When you play against caliber of players like that, or if you ever see them play, and if you're watching from a distance or you're watching from the stands, you realize very quickly, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm all but 6'1.5". So there's not much I can really put out there in regards to the caliber of what these guys can do. So I'm gratefully retired.
Well, that's awesome. How did taking what you learned on the court translate to success to what you're doing now?
Good question. So I would say number one, I was a point guard. So the tacticalness of being on the court and being a leader on the court, I think that transpires really well into the financial services space when it comes into planning, when it comes into running an organization, working with teammates and things of that nature, because I have what you call, or what I would call a professional roundtable. I can't call it. I obviously can't call it a family office. I'm not doing that type of business just yet. That's the goal that I'm working towards in the near future, right? But I've created a professional relationship with estate planners, financial advisors, tax planning professionals, as well as professionals in the mortgage industry. And the reason why I've done this, and I can even say professionals in private equity as well. And the reason why I've done this is because each of my clients have very unique problems, right, from a financial perspective. And it's my job as the point guard, if you think about it from that perspective, right, to orchestrate the team, get the team together to collaborate, work with one another to solve one problem, to score this basket or win this championship, right? Which is each championship, if you think about it, is helping that client, helping them get to their financial destination. So I think from a perspective of when you say how does sports translate? Well, number one, not everything goes the way you thought it was going to go. Because if it were that easy, then we would have won every single game. We'd score 100 plus points a game. Doesn't work like that. There's different things, different challenges that you run into that sometimes you don't know immediately when you meet with the client, but you figure out along the way how to solve that problem. And it takes, I'm not going to just paint myself as this wonderful leader, but it does take some form of leadership to help everybody work together, because it's really easy to have all these professionals kind of just, either do their own thing or want to go about doing things a certain type of way, and being able to get them to collaborate and work in unison and get things done in a timely manner. It correlates perfectly with basketball, because it's the same thing as a point guard.
Totally. How did you make your connections to build your squad? Because a lot of people getting started in business, it's like they're going to networking events, they're handing out business cards, taking business cards, and then the year comes around and they're like, crap, I haven't made any good connections yet. So how did you overcome that? Because that could be tough to do for some people.
It's very tough. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it wasn't. So this is about year 7 for me. And it may be even a little bit more than that, but let's just call it year 7 for me, right? And that was me when I first started, because when I got into the industry, I was that guy that I don't know about you, Josh, but I didn't network very well in high or in college, and I didn't go to all the the career fairs and all that stuff because in my head I thought I might have a chance at the NBA. I don't know why, but but I thought I had a chance at the NBA, right? And I probably could have if I stuck with it, but when I got into this industry, I knew very quickly that friends and family, not that they didn't want to support me per se, but I hadn't built any trust or proved myself yet. So there really was no reason for them to do business with me when they had other people to consider, right? And that's just me being brutally honest for myself, right? I'm not speaking for anybody else, but just for myself from the way I looked at it. Uh, and from there, I leveraged relationships. So I knew I didn't know a lot of people, and then the people that I did know weren't necessarily in the best financial situation. So the next best bet for me was asking my mother, like, "Hey, who's some people that you think I can meet, or is it possible that you can introduce me to some of your relationships?" And in her case, she was in real estate for almost 25 years. So she wasn't like the what is it, the Selling Sunset like you see on Netflix. Not that at all, trust me, regular real estate. But she introduced me to a gentleman that owned a franchise. I believe it was a Farmers Insurance, and that was my first opportunity to speak to somebody that, number one, was already in this industry over 30 plus years, experience, etc. Knees shaking. And it started with that. I spoke with him, and I was able to kind of prove myself in that scenario, right? I knew what I was talking about. I knew the information. The services I were providing were a little bit different than his. And obviously, he wasn't interested to any capacity of being a client or anything of that nature. But he did say, like, hey, I applaud you because most people would never have done this. And if you're looking to meet new people, I think I have a way for you to do it. And he introduced me to the Realtors Association. And that's kind of where it started for me, right? I was very introverted, so I needed that to be able to learn how to speak to these different people. There were different professionals in there. There were mortgage professionals, real estate agents, some other business professionals, etc. Started off with me helping real estate agents. Then I got introduced to brokers. The brokers and the agents introduced me to their clientele. From there, I started meeting tax professionals and so on and so forth. Right. And as your experience gets better, as your confidence grows, and of course, if you know what you're talking about and you become an expert in your craft, it becomes actually very easy to, or let me not say that, it becomes very convenient to be able to create those relationships. Because let's just think about it from this perspective. If you're a financial advisor, and let's say your focus is specifically financial, being a financial advisor, and you don't want to get the credentials to be a tax professional, well, it'd probably be a good idea to get a tax professional and not just a preparer, but a planner, right?
Mhm.
That can, solve problems that you can't necessarily solve yourself, right? That way you have a go-to person, and now you're offering a niche service that maybe not all financial advisors do, right? And that's something that I knew set myself apart from other professionals, is if I can create a holistic solution by having a in-house, essentially, like I said, professional roundtable. So regardless of what the need is, especially now with those needs being a little bit more advanced than the normal financial situation, it makes it very easy for a client to say, yes, I want to do business with you. So hopefully that kind of answers that in a long way.
Yeah, I've had like no success like forming relationships. I mean, I've met lots of people and I have a lot of people I would consider a friend. I haven't found like that one person in a professional capacity that's like, hey Josh, let's work together and like let's build a team. I don't know why, but I like looked at myself and I was like, listen, I just have a marketing problem. So I got to solve this marketing problem so that I can have opportunities to show people exactly what we could possibly help them with. So I like took the opposite approach of a lot of people. And it seems like you did too. Like I took the approach of I'm just going to learn as much about anything that has to do with money as possible. And then when I meet with someone, like they'll just be like, all right, like, you know what you're doing. Versus like a lot of people get in the business, they could have some success for, a few years. And then all of a sudden they have a bad product. And once your reputation as a business is depleted, especially if you're a small business and you're not like a Johnson and Johnson, where you put aspirin on the shelves and you have to spend millions of dollars to take it off the shelves because someone takes a bad pill. That's clock goes zero, game's over. You're done.
100%. So I'll say this, and if you think about it from this perspective, I think the biggest thing is like specifically for myself, what helped me was that I wasn't, it goes back to sports. I wasn't scared to do like the work that was necessary to get myself to a position for the opportunity. So in basketball, you don't just make a game-winning shot. I mean, you can by accident, but most people that like that shoot that game-winning shot, they want to shoot it. And they've been practicing that for so long that when it came to that point, they knew that when they got that opportunity, it was gonna, it was gonna be fruitful. I kind of look at business the same way. So for me, because it was kind of the same thing. Like I was having a really hard time getting clientele and everything else. And it got to a point where I stopped trying to just find clients. And I started saying, okay, well, if I want to make connections with these other professionals, I got to figure out a way to make them want to do business with me. And it came to a point where I was basically saying, like, hey, how could someone like me help you in the industry that you're in? What are some of the problems that your clients are having and things of that nature? And then I started finding ways to create solutions for those professionals. And naturally, you help them a couple of times. And for me, I didn't even ask for a referral fee or anything of that nature because I'm compensated by the institutions, not by the client. So I don't need a referral fee from them in order for me to, or I don't, yeah, I don't, if they send me anything, I don't like, I pay them, but I don't expect if I send them a client for them to pay me. I make it very reciprocal in that aspect. And naturally, once you build that relationship, obviously you create a little bit of a friendship. It's a lot easier to make that ask, right? But preferably you want to work with somebody that has credibility and everything else. And once you find those people, you build that relationship, and that takes time. And you prove yourself. I think that I'm not just speaking to you, I'm speaking to anybody that's watching this class or watching this podcast right now. But once you prove yourself, it becomes really easy for them to say, hey, you know what? I think that would be a good idea for us to partner up. Maybe we can cross collaborate and do some projects together, right? Maybe like hypothetically speaking, if there's a financial advisor, they may want to work specifically with a mortgage professional, right? Why? Because they go hand in hand. The financial literacy and everything else helps that person purchase that home, and it prepares them for what's needed to be able to invest and everything else. So like they go perfectly together. Same thing with estate planning and financial professionals as well. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's like if you want to be, let's just stick to basketball since you're a basketball player, you could be Jeremy Lin, and the Linsanity movement like is crazy. It's exciting. And it's gone. Versus you could be Robert Ory, boring, role player, wins championships, does his job. Like, and when you go to business, people want the Linsanity. They want the excitement. However, the boring, set a pick, go to your spot and stand there and wait for someone to pass you the ball and shoot your shot when you're open, that is actually the secret.
Right. Yeah. No,
So a lot of people are doing it backwards. And then they
yeah,
wonder why it doesn't work.
yeah, I would agree with that. And no disrespect to Robert Ory, because he got almost more championships than all the greats that we talk about. But but I will say this, I think sometimes it's better to focus on I think sometimes it's better to focus on finding ways to solve those problems. Like you may need to be that Ray Allen in a sense that, you know, you're waiting to get the ball to get that shot off. But at the end of the day, instead of trying to figure out how to be, the hot flash in the pan, well, how do I get more things to funnel towards me as a resource? That's what I've been thinking and building over all these years is how do I get to a point where I'm providing so much value that people have to funnel business my way? That's what kind of really helped me out, and which is helping me progress in the rate that I am now, is because I am providing such a niche service, and to the people that I am trying to help, the professionals that I deal with, they are looking for people to bring my way because it means more business for them as well. So it's like I said, it's a two-way street, and if we can if we solve that problem, then it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, goodwill is an underestimated asset on someone's balance sheet. And building that goodwill, you'll never know when you need to tap into that goodwill. However, if you have no goodwill and things get tough, you have nothing to tap into. However, when things get tough, and you've been someone's friend for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, never asked them for anything, and you're like, hey, I could really use an assist right now, you know
Yeah,
exactly who to call.
absolutely. Absolutely. We call those deposits. You put
Yeah.
deposits before you start asking for withdrawals. And especially if it benefits that other professional as well, it's a no-brainer. There's in some cases there's no reason why they would say no. Especially in today's day and age, a lot of professionals, regardless of their field, um, I'm not going to say they're struggling, but they've had a hard time in the last maybe 2 or 3 years. Despite 2020 and the explosion of Zoom and virtual meeting systems and everything, now things are starting to calm down. And you'll notice with the people on social media and everything else, um, some of those people, the gurus and everything, they're all starting to disappear. All right, because that flash in the pan of being able to make a quick buck, it's leaving. Even for example, TikTok right now, they're talking about. I don't know if you saw, but they're talking about them officially banning TikTok. Imagine how many people who thought that
It
little
got
bit of money.
it got approved. The vote got approved.
Yeah. So imagine how many people were making money on that and they thought that was going to last forever. Imagine how many people were doing the OnlyFans thing or whatever else, and they think that's going to last forever. It's not. And if you have skill sets that you can provide, obviously not in that capacity, but skill sets that you can provide, no shame on them. But skill sets that you can provide to other professionals, it just makes it an easy union when the time is right. Because when you do need to come together, like you said, and hey, let's partner up, let's do this, even if it's just hey, help me out, let's host an event together, let's host a webinar together, see where it goes. Who knows what that turns into, right? So, but yeah, that's helped me out dramatically over the years, and then because of that, I've been able to create this professional roundtable, as I call it, that works extremely well for me.
Totally. And the people that have been doing well, let's just say on TikTok, they're all in on TikTok, and TikTok could be taken away. There's people who take so much risk where if one thing goes wrong, they're out of business. And on the flip side, like you alluded to earlier in the conversation, if you don't take enough risk, which some people are scared to take risks, then they don't hit the number that they need in order to live a successful life. So it's all about, have you had people like that? Like maybe they're too scared. How do you get them to understand to do so? They got to do something, because if you do nothing, like your situation's not going to change.
Yeah, we call that analysis paralysis. um,
Yeah, for sure.
um, I would say for sure you need a healthy balance. Like there's some things that there's no such thing as balance with. Like for me, I can't say per se that there's a balance in my relationship as life and business, because both myself and my wife are business owners. My wife just
Mhm.
established her med spa. I'm super proud of her for that. They are killing it. And her business partner and slash her friend, who I've known her ever since I've known my wife. They're they're absolutely killing the game, but there is a amount of risk that has to go into starting something like that. You have to be willing to put money up. Same thing on my side. There's an amount of risk that goes into learning about different ways of marketing and learning about how to get into different demographics of people in order to find different types of clientele. For example, you may have to spend a couple $1,000s to go to a golf charity event if you want to meet a certain caliber of clients, right? For a long period of time, I used to say, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Now I'm like, heck yeah, I'm doing that. Because this is how you
I'm ready to
meet.
go play right now. I'm ready to get out there.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, I swear, if you could hear the wind outside, it sounds like 40 or 50 mile per hour winds. I don't know why it's so windy right now, but that's like you have to put yourself in positions to meet these different people. And risk doesn't always mean money. Risk can be, your time, right? Or speaking to someone. Because sometimes we look at, speaking to someone like we're like, oh man, he's the CEO of X, Y, and Z company. And, who knows what that conversation might, might might unfold. And there's been a lot of times where I was nervous about talking to people, and then I talk to them. I'm like, why was I nervous to talk to you? You're so, you're like the nicest person I've ever met. You're the chillest person I've ever met, right? And you'd be surprised how many people actually would love to hear what you have to say. And it may not be that you're necessarily trying to make them a client or anything of that nature, but if you can provide resource to the associations that they have, or if you can solve problems to the associations they have, you'd be surprised at how many people will be willing to do business with you. So if there's financial advisors or whatever else, and they're looking to try and build out their clientele base, get good at like providing free resource to people. Like once again, deposits. Like if you provide those it's a risk, right? Because you're investing your time and everything else. But be willing to do a lunch and learn or something like that for somebody's dental office or something, teaching them about basic investing and why they need to save for retirement or whatever else. And who knows, half that office or the entire office may end up coming your way because no one's ever spoke to them about it before. So there's little things like that come into play, but that risk factor, it is a must. You cannot be in business and not take risk. And if you are and you're successful, please tell me the secret because I've yet to see that.
Well, Warren Buffett said the reason he invests in other companies is because it's too hard to start your own. So that's why he's an investor. He's like, it's much easier to choose a good company and to evaluate whether or not it makes sense to invest in them for the long run than to start one from scratch.
Yeah, definitely so. Good way to put
So
it.
Warren, if you could talk to Warren Buffett, he could tell you. But I mean, his story is, I mean, a lot of people don't even know this. His dad was a stockbroker. His dad was a politician. He raised 100 grand back in the day, which is like a company raising like $1 million. So like he raised $1 million in today's money, and then that's how he got to start. Obviously, he knew what he was doing because he was really good at it. However, getting people to give you $1 million for an adventure, it's pretty tough.
uh, Investments or anything like in the space that I'm in, there's a lot of clients that find themselves in positions where they've done everything right. They saved into the company 401k, or they may have been with their advisor for 20, 30 plus years or whatever the circumstances are. And that's exactly the scenario. They may be sitting on $1 million, 2 million, 500,000, 300,000, whatever that number is. And they're at positions where they find themselves saying like, hey, I'm glad that I have this, but I know I can't manage to keep this based off of how the market's performing and everything else. And I got to make a decision. I got to figure out, okay, am I going to keep trying to chase the returns? Am I going to go more conservative and and potentially lower my opportunity for growth for more reserved returns so I can maintain my portfolio balance and potentially be able to take income? Or am I going to cash out, or am I going to do something else? And that's kind of where my spectrum of the industry comes into play. I'm not trying to, take anything away from financial advisors or anything else, because they're, in my opinion, extremely important for people who aren't willing to learn the information on themselves, which is the majority of people. But when they get to this stage of their life, this is the distribution phase, and you got to figure out how you're going to distribute income, right? And if you need to continue growing it, well, that conversation, like you just said, trying to, help somebody understand the value of potentially moving money, it's not an easy conversation, right? And it must make sense for that individual. So when we talk about moving large amounts of money, there are some clients that, they move $1 million or something like that from their portfolio. It's not 100% of their portfolio, obviously, but they're moving that to safeguard it. And that's where tools like annuities and things of that nature come into play, so that they can have the luxury of both worlds, right? Continuing to grow their money at a competitive rate while being able to distribute income and protect themselves from losses, while still having a little bit of their portfolio still in the market to capture any aggressive returns if they can manage to get them. Right. So when you talk about moving large amounts of funds, like it's a fun conversation, but it's a very nerve-wracking one, to say the least, for sure.
Yeah, you got to have a game plan. You got to have a strategy, and you got to keep the four balanced, just like
Easy.
your money situation. So happy to have you on, Brandon. I don't know. Are you big on social media? You got anything coming up? I don't know. Where would you want people to find you, talk to you? I just emailed you or DM'd you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm big on social media. I have a decent following. My social media, for anybody, if you're wondering, it's at Mr. Dot, so as in period, one Cole World. So you spell ONE, Cole, my last name, COLE, and then the word world. I couldn't take Cole World because J. Cole has that. So I had to switch it up. But at the end of the day, you can follow me on there. I give I'll say alternative financial advice for individuals that are in positions that they have their investments in place, they have their stock options, they have their 401ks, but maybe they're in a position where they're looking for alternative or enhanced ways to be able to leverage their cash flow. And I'll talk about different methods of being able to do that and what that means to being able to enhance your lifestyle. But yeah, I got a lot more content that's coming out pretty soon, so I'm really excited about that. We'll be talking about some very interesting things and some pretty cool case scenarios. But yeah, I'm a regular guy, just like all of you. I don't live a lavish lifestyle or anything like that. I'm not trying to act like I got a Lamborghini or do anything that I shouldn't be doing. I'm just trying to provide good education and teach people the things they need to know. So when the right time comes, they can use it as they need to. So
For sure. Appreciate having you on. We'll see everyone next time. Bye, everyone.